Let's continue.
So tell us something.
Talking about preparation of food. Certain things are permitted, certain things are not permitted. Ein mefatzim.
It's hakana. Or hakana.
Hakana.
That's so lochbo.
Meliach.
So we don't do something to
normally, I think I've seen this verb mostly in terms of cracking nuts. Mefatzea egozim. Cracking a nut.
But a hakana is a container or something?
No, a kana is a reed.
Ah.
A pole or a reed. So I'm not even sure what they mean here, but maybe it means like, if I have a reed that's a whole bamboo root, a reed or whatever,
630.
then to get it to a point where to get it to a point where I can use it as a litzlos. You know what litzlos means?
To cook on.
To roast, specifically.
Right.
Now, roasting implies you're going to put something directly in the fire.
Right.
Putting something directly in the fire is extremely difficult unless you have a shvud, a skewer. So perhaps that's what it means. I'm trying to create a skewer ad hoc. Maybe it means to crack open the bamboo to get a long, sharp piece from it that it will substitute as a skewer. I'm not even sure if that's what it's saying. That's a possibility. I'm not allowed to crack open the reeds, the reed, in order to roast with it a maliach. Now, what's maliach?
I know that from before. Salted fish.
Good.
Fatzi means to crack, right?
Mifatzea, in my experience, was usually in conjunction with nuts, to crack open nuts. Here we're talking about a kana, which is a reed. So I assume that we're using the verb about cracking nuts to somehow crack open the reed.
That's next. It's egos.
Egos, there you go.
Yeah.
So you can't crack open a reed, but you can crack open the egos, the nut.
Right.
Be
Matzalis.
Matzlis. Do we have that before?
Isn't it a towel or
Shmata.
shmata?
So I think what it might mean is that you put it inside the shmata and then you hammer down on it, or you use some kind of implement to crack the nut, and then instead of the nut shattering in 40 different directions, you keep it all inside that cloth.
Right.
So that it contains it and you're able to use it after the nut is cracked. You open up the cloth and you see all the little pieces, and you can choose the good and leave the bad, or vice versa.
What does these two was nafchin mean?
Sorry?
So what does nafchin b'maflach mean?
Nofchim is to breathe, meaning to breathe out. It says, when Hashem created man, he blew into his nostrils a living spirit, right? That's called vayipach, ba'apo. Hashem blew into his nostrils, right? So to blow in a steady stream of air is called nofeach, nofchim. And the mapuach is an implement for blowing a stream of air, which we call a bellows.
Nafchin we can go to the shafaris in a little...
It's a reed, it's like a tube, right? And instead of using a bellows, which naturally does it just by opening and closing your hands, a reed you have to actually keep blowing. It's almost like a shofar, right? Shofar is not directed at one spot. It gets larger so all the air goes out to like different directions. But if you had something like a shofar that stayed straight the whole time, then what would come out the end would be a very concentrated stream of air, which is what you need to keep a fire going, to fan the fire. A concentrated stream of air on one spot. That's what bellows do. They take a massive amount of air and they channel it through one small hole, and it comes out of that hole in a very strong, concentrated stream of air. So here you're not allowed to do that with the bellows, but you are allowed to do it with a shvaferis, with a tube. By blowing through a tube, you create this steady stream of air in a concentrated way on the fire to basically fan the fire into being flames. Right? That's often happens that when you have a fire, it dies down, which means it's just like glowing embers. And sometimes you want to make it turn back into a bigger fire. You have to fan the flames. You have to fan the fire. Okay, so we said you can do the mafatzim as egos b'matlis ve'ein chosheshin. Last few words of the
ואין חוששים שמי
Shema.
Shema Tikra. Without worrying.
No, you don't have to worry. We don't worry.
Yeah, we don't worry regarding caring. Caring of what?
Shema means what? Perhaps. You don't have to worry that perhaps.
Well,
Kriya, right? Kriya is what we do when Chashom someone dies. We do Kriya. People say rip Kriya, even though it's like redundant. Rip Kriya is like saying rip the rip. But that's what this word is. Tikareya, I think. Tikareya would be the passive. It shall rip. So you don't have to worry. Right? You're allowed to use a shmata. You don't have to worry it's going to rip. Because theoretically, repping a garment is a malacha.
It's future tense, right?
I think it's future because of the tav. And also, I think you should make it passive. That it shall be ripped. You don't have to worry that it shall become ripped.
So what's he saying? We don't...
Basically, you can use a garment of some sort, usually a shmata you don't care about, but let's say you even use a cloth that you do care about, and then when it gets ripped, you look at it, now you're going to have to sew it up, right? So if you look at the malachas, the list of malachas, there's 39 malachas, right, that we always talk about. You know where those 39 are listed? I mentioned it a few times, hoping people would look it up. And remember where it's listed? 39 malachas. Which parak? Which parak? 7th day, 7th parak. Second Mishnah. Like Shnei Luchos Abris, or Lechem Mishnah. Second Mishnah, Lechem Mishnah. Okay, so in the second Mishnah, the seventh parak, which the name of the parak is Klal Gadol, because the first Mishnah also uses the word Klal Gadol to give you a certain rule about whatever. The second Mishnah also uses the word Klal Gadol to tell you the big rule about 39 malachas. So if you go through that list, it'll help you to keep Shabbos, in my opinion. As I said, you can get the book also and go through all 39 malachas. But if you don't have the book and you just want to start to be more familiar with every malacha, so make sure you don't do at least generally all the malachas, you can be careful. And obviously you need to learn each malacha more individually and in detail to make sure, particularly you don't break each malacha. But if you don't know even that there is such a malacha, how are you going to even be careful to, right? So you have to first learn the ideas of each malacha. One of them is to be korea.
To tear.
To tear a garment is also malacha. But the question is, if you do something that's destructive on Shabbos, it's not a malacha. So isn't tearing a garment destructive? So the Mishnah says, what's the malacha? Tearing almanas litfor. If you're tearing a garment in order to sew it up, why would you do that? You stupid idiot, you're going to tear a garment just to be able to sew it up? The answer is sometimes there's a problem with the material. It's like bunched up or something. So by tearing it and then re-sewing, you make it nice and flat and a proper garment, proper fabric. It's like fixing the fabric, like tearing it and re-sewing it. It can happen. So that's the real malacha. If you don't do it in that way, if you tear just because you want to tear something up, then it's not constructive, it's destructive, right? Except there is a shita that if you tear up something just to get rid of your anger, I'm so angry, and then you feel much better. You're like, shit, now I feel better. I tore up my wife's shirt or something, right? So then that's constructive. So there are shitas that if you're korea b'chamaso, if if you tear something up in your anger, since it's a constructive act of getting rid of your anger, that it is considered a malacha as well. But basically speaking, ripping a garment is only a malacha if you do it for a constructive purpose. Like you're trying to rip it in order to sew it up properly without whatever problem it had before. So here I think that's maybe what it means, that you don't have to worry about tearing the garment and saying, oh, I'm not allowed to tear a garment on Shabbos or Yom Tov. That's true, but that's only if you're doing something constructive.
Yeah.
Like tearing it in order to sew it up without the problem that it had. But here, all you're doing is hammering on this nut covered by the material, and when I hammer down on it, it's going to tear the garment, but that tearing is only destructive. It's not like I'm trying to positively tear it so I can fix the garment. So maybe that's what it means, because you don't have to worry about the tearing, because it's not a malacha anyways. Okay, let's see the Rashis. Excuse me. Ein mefatzim es hakaneh.
We're not allowed to crack nuts with the...
Crack the reed.
It says...
Krumiyosov. To place its membranes. A krum is a membrane. So it's a strange word. I've never really seen this word before. Krumiyosov. Sounds like the membranes. Right? Somehow by cracking the kaneh, you get these small little pieces of membrane of the kaneh. Tachas hamaliach. You want to place them underneath the fish, the salted fish.
Al ha'askala. What does al ha'askala mean?
Fire.
And askala we saw before.
Flame.
Huh?
Flames or fire.
No, I don't think so. I think it was more like almost a grill. That you put things on the grill to get it roasted on the fire. Like an intermediate. Let's see. Here it is. I will refer you to an earlier Rashi, if you're game. Are you into turning pages?
Yeah.
Lamed base. There's a Mishnah in the middle of the page. I think we actually spent a long time on. Ein shovrim esacheres, we're not allowed to break pottery. Ve'ein chotchim haniyar, and we're not allowed to cut up paper.
Oh, no, I see it. It's in Rashi.
Litzlos bo, to cook, roast with it, maliach. There's the word maliach again. And Rashi says, what is all this about? Why would you break pottery or cut up paper for roasting, right? Rashi says, kishetzolim dagim, when a person roasts fish, alha askala, on like a grill, or maybe a frying pan would be a better translation here. Shikorin griddle, a griddle, like you make pancakes on a griddle.
Griddle, a grill.
What?
A griddle or a grill?
Whatever. The laws. So when you want to fry something up on a, let's say a frying pan, chotchim kanim, we cut up reeds, or kash, shibolim, or even straw from kernels of grain, o shovrim charsims, right? We can also sometimes break up pottery, get shards of pottery. O chotchim niyar, or we sometimes cut up paper. And what do you do with those? Shorin b'mayim, you soak them in water. The sodrin haniyar al gabi askala, and then you arrange them upon the frying pan. is basically like today, use Teflon. Shouldn't stick to the pan. Mipnei shehamateches, because the metal frying pan mitchamem, it gets very hot. V'soref asadag, and it could end up burning the fish. So in the old days, when they didn't have Teflon, etc., they put other artificial things in the frying pan to keep it cooled down. I think in a way it's a little bit like the case of the tanur we had a little while ago. Remember the case where they were pouring cold water onto the tanur? And we said if you're doing it to monitor the cooking, the baking inside the oven, it's good. What is that? What does pouring cold water on an oven help with the cooking? Because it equalizes the temperature. It sort of modulates the temperature, so it doesn't end up burning. So Rashi explained the same thing back then on Lamed Beis regarding frying fish on the frying pan type of thing, or some kind of a grill, that it will very easily burn unless you put these other or more artificial pieces of pottery, wood, or paper even, that are soaked in water into the frying pan. That modulates and moderates whatever the cooking of the fish. So they shouldn't burn. Very similar, I think. Okay, so I think that's maybe what Rashi is referring to now as well. That you want to take the krumios and take the sort of the membrane of these bamboo reeds or whatever, tachas hamaliach, to put them under the fish, al ha'askala, on the frying pan. Sh'osa kli, the reason why you're not allowed to do it is because it ends up making a kli. That's like making a kli. That's considered you fix up to kind of a kli there. Why? How did I make a kli? And am I the only one reading, or does someone else would like to read?
Oh, we're back on the other page now.
Yeah.
So it's a kli.
Finish here.
So it's a kli.
Why is this considered to be making the kli? Just putting little pieces of wood in the frying pan.
Everything that he does,
Right.
to use it, have it taken kli, like fixing a vessel.
Right. You're using it, you're giving it some kind of usage. That is called tikkun kli, right? Rashi is a very interesting Rashi. I would say that Rashi should be copied and pasted in larger letters for us to go through all these sugis again with that Rashi at the forefront. Rashi now defined a lot of cases that didn't quite make sense at the time. Why are you calling this making a kli? So Rashi gives the definition here. I don't know why he waited till the very end to do it, but I would put this at the very beginning of all the sugis about tikkun kli and all of that. It's called making a kli when you do anything to what?
To use it.
Some usage, mishtamesh, right?
We've had this before. We were talking about the flat plates.
Yeah.
That you can even put something, what was it, small coins on the flat plates.
It had a usage, right there it had a usage. But there, a plate I understand is a kli. But here, it's just a little piece of wood you're putting in the frying pan. You're saying, no, anything where you're making something to use, it's called a tikkun kli. You're taking these little pieces of thing and you're going to use them. It's going to serve a function inside the frying pan to help the fish shouldn't stick to the pan, that it shouldn't burn. You now did a kli. What kli? Well, there's already frying pan. There's no new kli here. Those little pieces of wood that you're throwing in to act as a kind of a barrier between the frying pan and the fish, to keep them from burning, is called serving a function. That little thing is serving a function. A lot of things I can think of on the borderline of this kind of thinking, I would wonder if they're also called making a kli. If you pour in oil to a frying pan to make sure it doesn't stick and doesn't burn, Is that called I made a kli?
No.
No, because oil isn't a kli by any stretch of the imagination. But these little pieces of wood, suddenly you could say, well, each one is like a little kli that's doing a job. But I guess oil is will never be looked at as a kli, even though it's doing the same thing, right? When you put a layer of oil in the fire, in a frying pan, you're basically doing it in order that the fish shouldn't stick, it shouldn't burn. It is serving the same function in a way, but whatever. So obviously this Rashi is very important, but on the other hand, there are cases where I could think of where something's performing a function, but it's still not called making a kli. In any event, let's go on. Ve'ein chosheshin shemati kareya. So we said you can crack nuts, even using a matli, some kind of a cloth around the nut, so that it shouldn't just splinter in 1,000 directions and you'll lose your nut. Right, like I said, the guy lost his nuts. No, we can do it with this cloth surrounding it.
You
don't have to worry it's going to rip. Now you could have said, you know why I'm not worried? Because I don't think it's going to rip. I think it's a strong cloth. Rashi says no. Even if it does rip, the answer is, you know why we don't have to worry? Loi ichpas lang. Doesn't matter to us. Litfor, there it is. Rosh Kivanti. Rashi says, why don't you have to worry? Because he's not ripping it with an intention to litfor, to stitch it up. When does it say in the Mishnah, in which parak, the 7th parak of Shabbos, which Mishnah, the 2nd Mishnah, where it lists all 39 malachas, and it lists ripping a garment as one of the 39 malachas. But how does it say it? Korea almanas litfor. Exactly the words of this Rashi. Where did Rashi get it from? Because he memorized that Mishnah in the 7th parak of Shabbos. And if you would like to know the daf in the Gemora that it comes out in Masechet Shabbos, I think is daf Ayin Gimel.
What's T4?
Which is like owning.
Pere.
What?
T4.
Litfor.
Litfor is
to stitch. A woman who's a seamstress called a toferet.
Toferet?
A toferet.
Oh.
She's a stitcher, so to speak. She sews up garments.
Stitching time.
There's another name we find in Chazal, Chayat, from the word machat, which is the needle. Like the guy, who's the guy who used the needle? Today the people who use needles are doctors, but in those days people who used needles were tailors. So the tailor is called a chayat. In fact, that's where the word chait comes from.
What is it?
Someone whose name is Chait, you know anyone whose last name is Chait?
Yeah, I do.
It's really supposed to be chayat.
Oh, really?
A lot of them, when they come to Israel, they change it back to chayat.
Chait, I know, is a plastic surgeon, strangely.
Well, tell him you understand why he does plastic surgery, because he's really just a tailor. Just fixing up people's broken faces.
Plastic surgery, that's...
Should we start the new Mishnah?
Yes.
Okay, that's the attitude.
It's about 5 minutes.
Why owed? Because what was the previous Mishnah?
Furthermore,
What was the previous Mishnah? Rabbi Eliezer. Omer! The previous Mishnah was Rabbi Eliezer said what? No Taladim Kisain, can take a twig from the... So Od Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Another thing he's known to have said.
Omed Adam al Muktzah. That a man stands next to something that's Muktzah.
On, not next to.
On Muktzah?
Now, whatever muksa means, it doesn't necessarily mean what we call muksa. It might be referring to a certain object that's called muksa. I don't know.
Year of Shabbos. The Shvi'is. During the year of Shvi'is. The Omer Mika'an and
Mikan.
Amikan, it says here,
No,
here,
from here.
from here. אני אוכל למחר, I'll eat this from tomorrow. וחכמים אומרים עד ששום.
Yer Shom. You ever get Dor Rashum?
Oh, permission or...
Sometimes something comes from Australia. Dor Rashum. Dor Rashum.
It never comes from Australia. Yeah, express, or not express, registered.
So what's a Roshem?
A Russian is like a stamp as a Russian, I don't know.
You make an impression on something, right? Either by writing it or stamping, doesn't matter. And Yer Shom is that he will
Yeah, he will make a stamp.
inscribe in some way.
But this doesn't say,
Even though
oh,
it's
Russian, that he will inscribe. Okay. Amar Mikan Va'ad Kan. Oh. And he will say from here, in the future I will...
No, not in the future.
Amar, and he will say from here,
Ad Kan.
I'll eat from here, from this point. From
Ad Kan.
to this point.
From here
to here.
until here.
Uh-huh. From here to here.
So the Rabbanan are requiring you to specify which exact things do you want to eat tomorrow. To take off the din of muksa. So it seems like we are talking about real muksa. Right? Let's say there's a certain amount of things that are muksa. Right? Like we had the case of the birds, right? We had this case where the birds were going to be a problem.
If they've been prepared the day before.
So that's what we're saying.
Uh-huh.
Because they're muksa. Let's say the problem would have been muksa. So the Lezer's saying all you have to do is stand in front of them and say, I'm going to eat from this tomorrow.
Here's
It's
a
not
case.
specified.
Yeah.
The Rabbanan is saying, no, you have to actually specify. From here until here. Don't just say a general statement, because that's not good. You have to specify what exactly you intend to eat the next day, and that will help. In other words, they both agree that if you have something that's muksa, and if you wait till Shabbos or Yom Tov, you won't be able to pick them up on Shabbos or Yom Tov, but if you specify it the day before, you can make it muchan, right? You can make it prepared. But that's, according to Rabbi Lezer, what kind of statement do you have to make to prepare it in advance? A general statement.
Why the year of Shvi'is?
I don't know.
Why Shabbat Shvi'is?
I'm not sure what he means by that. We'll have to go into the Rashis on that. I'm just saying the general statements they seem to be making, how it relates to Shemitah, I'm not sure yet. But I hear in general what they're saying. The general crux of what they're saying is that you have something that's going to be muktzah. You want to prepare it from the day before. What kind of a dibur do you have to make in order to prepare it? Will it work even if you make a general statement, but you don't specify what you're really hoping to eat, or you have to actually specify what you're hoping to eat? Rabbi Lezer says it's enough to be general, just a general statement from anywhere in this group of stuff I'm going to eat. Then you come tomorrow and you pick out what you want. The Rabbanan say no, you have to specify. Right? It's not going to work just to say a general thing. You have to say which exact ones you want, and then there's what to talk about. That's what it seems to be saying. Okay, we have to read the Rashis, we have to figure it out. Okay, go ahead.